In today's KKSS, we'll talk about the learnings that we have obtained from the fourth quarter results of 2021 for Visa and Mastercard. But before I go into the details of those earnings calls, I just made this one slider on which is basically a quick comparison of where these companies are positioned right now and what is the way forward look like for both of these companies. Now, comparing Visa and Mastercard, Visa, if you see, it is bigger in terms of revenue, number of transactions, purchase volumes, as well as the number of cards in circulation. So just to give you some perspective, in 2020, Visa's revenue was around $20 billion. Mastercard's revenue was around $16 billion. Okay. But if you see, Mastercard is growing much faster than Visa. And also many banks today are switching from Visa to Mastercard in developed markets. So I've got details on the subsequent slides. And one other point is that Amazon right now is not exactly very pleased with Visa. So what Amazon does is in the US, it offers the credit card in partnership. So they call this a co-branded credit card. So for example, in India, if you see, there is a Flipkart branded Axis Bank debit card. So like this, Amazon is offering a co-branded card in partnership with Visa in the United States. And what Amazon feels is that Visa is charging a very high transaction fees for this card. So the argument is that with the improvements in technology, this fees should actually come down, but it's actually going up. So this is so the market experts, what they're saying is it is possible that Amazon might also switch from using Visa to Mastercard in the future. Nothing is sure as of yet, but that could possibly happen. And one thing Visa is doing is it's expanding more aggressively in emerging markets, and it's also making inroads in the cryptocurrency area as well. More details on that in subsequent slides. Both companies are targeting
We'll just do a quick poll if it's okay, Sai.
Yes.
Right. So your favorite, whatever your debit card, or credit card, which one do you have? Is it Visa or Mastercard?
Mastercard.
One Master.
All my cards are Mastercards.
All my cards are Visa.
All my cards are Visa.
Visa.
Both mixed.
Mine also Visa.
Depends on the bank only.
So if it is mixed, tell which is the one that you use mostly or used to use mostly, I would say.
I don't think I decide based on Visa or Mastercard. I base it on the bank, HDFC or SBI, like that.
Correct. So, but the one that you use, right? So let's say if you use HDFC and let's say SBI, which one do they have?
I think the one I use more frequently is Visa.
Okay.
Mine is Mastercard.
Okay.
Same here.
Mine are on Mastercard too.
Okay, Mastercard. Okay.
Mine are Visa.
Okay. Jera?
Mine is also Visa.
Visa. Okay, you just checked. Okay. So, Jagdish, yours is a Visa, is it?
All Visa, yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. So I think basically mine also is a Mastercard. I think depending on the bank decided. I didn't decide it, but they gave me.
I think SBI gives Mastercard.
That's okay.
Most government banks give Mastercard. Like I have 3 accounts in 3 different government banks. All of them have given Mastercard.
Even SBI gives Visa as well. My SBI card is a Visa card only. And I think Axis Bank, I had a Mastercard initially, but then every 5 years they changed the card, right? So when that happened, I got a Visa instead of the Mastercard.
Yeah, I think I have also seen a sort of change over time. Okay.
And I think on the same point, right? So when I was doing my research, I came across articles which said that Visa cards offer more in terms of the offers and incentives to customers. Which is probably the reason why more banks have Visa instead of Mastercard. So these offers and incentives. So see, both Visa as well as Mastercard have their own data analytics divisions in their companies, and using these divisions, they churn out insights. They make recommendations to their financial institutions, partners, and everything. And this is one place where the offers and incentives originate. This is probably where maybe Visa scores over Mastercard, but I do believe Mastercard is catching up now based on the growth in their revenue and everything. Let's see what happens in the future. So the last but one point that I mentioned on the slide, both companies are targeting the B2b segment now. Now this is in sync with what we have been discussing over the past few sessions as well, because the personal card segment is kind of saturated right now, and the growth, if any, that happens in the future will largely be from the B2B payments area. And in fact, our current customer is also is a player in this area only, and it makes sense that more and more fintech companies are targeting this segment now. And for both companies, obviously, cross-border transactions are the biggest revenue driver, because this is where the transaction fees are the highest. This is also the case with our customer as well. Any questions here on this slide?
Sai, you told, like Amazon is in tie-up with Visa and the charges for transaction in Visa card is like increasing. When you mean charges, like which one? Because generally when we buy from Amazon or something,
these charges are not, the customer does not pay these charges. Amazon, see what does Visa do? Visa enables this payment to happen, right? So whenever you use your credit card or a debit card, so it is an interaction between banks, right? So for example, it is an interaction between your bank and, let's say, Amazon's bank, or the seller who has listed on the Amazon platform. So the interaction happens between both banks, but this interaction is facilitated by Visa, and that is why Visa takes a fee for each transaction. Okay. This fee, Amazon is saying that it is very high.
Okay, got it.
Any other questions? Let me move on to the next slide. Okay, now we look at the points from the Q4 2021 earnings call of Mastercard. A bit on the metrics first. So their GDV, that is the gross dollar volume, grew by 23% over 2020, the same period of 2020. And the cross-border transaction volume grew by 53%, and their revenue grew by 30%. And this revenue increase, primarily, if you see, it is coming from the growth in domestic as well as cross-border transactions. And they have also acquired 3 companies. So one is called as Aya, and then there's one more company called Argus, and one more company called Dynamic Yield. And the remaining revenue growth is due to services. So services is what I mentioned, right? They provide data analytics services, and also Visa has started to provide cryptocurrency advisory services to its banking partners. So these service divisions of these companies also contribute a little bit to the revenue. Now, look at what these companies have acquired. So these 3 companies, Aya, Argus, and Dynamic Yield, so they were acquired by Mastercard over the past year. That final acquisition of Dynamic Yield is still not completed yet. It is in progress. But what this Dynamic Yield company does is, so it analyzes or it mines the customer transactions data, and it gives recommendations as to what is the next product that this customer is going to buy. Or so we see all these recommendations engines, right? When you go to Amazon, you buy something, and then you get that list where it says people who purchase this product also purchase something else, something like that. So this Dynamic Yield is basically an AI company which gives these sort of recommendations. And this was, I believe, initially owned by McDonald's, but Mastercard has acquired it right now. So this will also act in conjunction with Mastercard's existing data analytics services division, where it will be useful for Mastercard to leverage this acquisition to give out better offers and incentives to its financial partner companies who issue its cards. And retail sales improved over the last year. So that is, so when I say retail sales, that is retail sales involving Mastercard transactions. So that increased by around 6.5% in the US and almost 3.5% in Europe. So this is largely because though there was the pandemic and everything, the e-commerce sales was still it was on the higher side. So the retail as a sector, if you see, was not significantly impacted by the pandemic.
In fact, it skyrocketed, isn't it?
Sorry, Chaitanya?
The e-commerce segment skyrocketed.
Yes, yeah.
During pandemic.
Yeah.
But this is over last year, so I think the previous year and this year both had COVID.
Yes.
I think at least partially. I think
Yeah.
there's 2020 and there is 2021 time. So, but still 6.4% growth. So that's great.
So this is on the metrics, and coming to certain industry trends that they force. So typically in these earnings call, the participants are basically the CEO of the company and the CFO, and then the senior vice president of investor relations. And whatever points you see here are basically their forecasts or outlook for the upcoming year. So their opinion is that customer spending trends will still continue to improve, and the fourth quarter cross-border spending is already above the pre-pandemic levels. So pre-pandemic levels is basically 2018, 2019, like that. So the cross-border spending which happened in the final quarter of last year already exceeded the pre-pandemic levels of 2018, 2019. And what they also say is that the impact of the Omicron variant is not as severe as expected. So the economic demand is expected to pick up due to the pent-up demand from last year. See, for example, you might have come across news items saying that in 2020 especially, the unemployment rate in the US was fairly high, right? And it is not just unemployment rate as a statistic, but also the pandemic has been hard on a lot of people, a lot of segments of the population. They have suffered, and people had pay cuts, and even if they didn't have pay cuts, they would have probably had additional medical expenses. Given the rate at which the COVID has had an impact on the population, there could have been other expenses as well. Okay, so due to this, consumer spending or spending on the regular items that we usually do, so that would have been a very a bit on the lower side. So that is what they say. When the economy, so when the COVID recedes, and since the Omicron variant is not as severe as it was expected to be, we are likely to see a rise in the retail sales. So that is what they mean by the pent-up demand. So everything that people did not purchase last year, all those purchases would have been put off or postponed for this year, and it is likely that due to these reasons we will see a further increase in the growth of retail sales this year. And cross-border travel is also improving. This also, I'm sure you're all familiar with, because a lot of countries are removing their restrictions right now. People are moving around more freely than they did in 2020 or 2021. And this growth is also expected to continue in 2022. So they expect a revenue growth, what they say in the high teens, that is around 15 to 19% growth they expect in 2022 as well. So these are trends that they foresee. Any questions here? Next slide. And so these are partnerships which Mastercard has forged with banks, primarily in developing countries. And this is, you can contrast this with the partnerships forged by Visa, because here if you see, it's all developed countries or developed markets, basically US, Canada, Netherlands, Australia, UK. But for Visa, it's if you see, it's mostly in Latin America, Mexico, Chile, and so on. So what we call as the emerging economies today. Okay. So in the US, if you see, they have formed partnership with Bank of America, Great Western Bank, and TabaPay. So TabaPay is another payments processing company, and Mastercard has this capability called Mastercard Send, which enables near real-time B2b domestic payments. Now, see, one point here is that this near real-time P2P domestic payments is very, very similar to what we have here today. We have the Google Pay or the Paytm, right? So it is not even near real time. What we have here is real time. But the United States and Western economies are still not there yet. They are behind in this, in this payments tech. So they actually consider this as a very big achievement, enabling near real-time B2b domestic payments. So these partnerships, other partnerships that you see on the slide here, with Medix Bank in Canada, Rabo Bank in the Netherlands. In most of these cases, or in almost all of these cases, it is they are acquiring new customers, right? Because these banks previously were not with Mastercards, but they will now be issued credit or debit cards of Mastercard, and so this will basically grow Mastercard's customer network to 3 million customers in this bank here, 8 million debit card customers from Rabo Bank in the Netherlands, and so on. And this was the point that I was talking about in the opening slide, where certain banks are switching from Visa to Mastercard. So there is this Westpac in Australia and NatWest in the UK, which were issuing Visa cards initially, but they are now switching to Mastercard. One reason behind this could be that Mastercard is catching up with Visa in terms of the value proposition it offers, in terms of the incentives and the offers. See, I was telling you that Visa has predominantly been the primary player in the consumer card industry, right? Because of their offers and incentives. But these 2 points, the Westpac in Australia and the NatWest in UK, indicating a switch from Visa to Mastercard, could possibly imply that Mastercard is catching up to Visa in terms of this offers and everything. So this could probably be a result of the advanced data analytics capabilities which Mastercard has developed in the recent years. This is probably something that we can infer from these points. Any questions or other observations? Okay, let me move on. And Mastercard has also acquired this company called Argus. So I was talking about this in one of the previous slides. So this company Argus enables digital payments for the majority of households in Mexico. So this is like a Paytm, you can assume, right? It has this bill pay solutions and other real-time payment applications, and these payments will be processed by Mastercard. So similarly in in Brazil, they have this partnership with Travelex. So Travelex is a company which is an international payments processing company. So again, these payments will also be processed by Mastercard. That is what they are calling as the cross-border services of Mastercard, and they can also send peer-to-peer fund transfers to customers in the US and Europe. And Mastercard has this technology called Mastercard Track Instant Pay. So this is basically a machine learning algorithm which facilitates immediate payment authorization and automatic payment execution. See, one very important thing for payment processing companies today is the speed at which the transaction happens and also the success rate of the transactions. Okay, the success rate of the transaction, it is somewhat equivalent to what we call as the conversion rate in the retail scenario. Because if the platform flags more transactions as fraudulent or not right or anything, then it is more likely that the transaction will fail. And when that happens, it is possible that customers will move away from that platform. Okay, so higher payment authorization rates and lower transaction time is very, very important for any payments processing company. Okay, and what Mastercard has done is it has developed certain advanced machine learning algorithms which facilitate this payment authorization and payment execution, which sort of automate that process without any manual intervention. So based on the customer's KYC details, based on the transaction details, based on where the transaction is originating, where the funds are going to, based on all of these factors, this algorithm determines whether that payment is fraudulent or not. And once it determines that everything's valid, it authorizes that payment and executes it automatically. So this drastically cuts down payment times, and this could possibly be a value add for Mastercard, which could give it an edge over Visa. Any questions on this slide? Let me move on now. So now,
one question because you're switching to Visa, right? So what was the yield percentage? Do they, declare anything like the yield percentage?
Yield, I don't think they declare because usually even the GDV they did not declare it in terms of absolute figures.
Okay.
Net revenue, net income, they declare.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because okay, got it. Understood. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, let me move on. Now let's talk about Visa. So here also metrics at first, top metrics, that is the payments volume, they grew by 20%, cross-border volume grew by 40%, revenue by 24%. You can just contrast this with the Mastercard metrics. Just go back a few slides. See, this was what I meant when I said Mastercard is growing at a much faster rate than is Visa. Okay, see, for the cross-border volume rate and the revenue growth rate for Mastercard, if you see, it is 53% and 30%. Okay, you see the same figures for Visa, it is 40% and 24%. Okay, so this is where even those people who advise which stocks to pick, right? So they opine, when it comes to a comparison between Mastercard and Visa, they said Mastercard because Visa's growth is kind of looking like saturated right now. They're slowing down, but Mastercard seems to be catching up and they're growing at a much faster rate. And so this is one reason their valuation, Mastercard's valuation, will also grow, and their stock prices will also have a higher value going forward.
And if you look at it, if you look at our country, right? I think so in terms of how it is looking, it's looking sort of slightly different. I'm not so sure if there is any one company in the US that is trying to compete with these payments and taking it out of this network, right? The payments network, but that both Visa and Mastercard have, right? So as opposed to that, in our country, for example, with the UPI coming into picture, right? This is a completely parallel mechanism to Visa and Mastercard. You can completely bypass Visa and Mastercard and still transact, right? I think the same is the case with I think China as well, right? With the WeChat payments or something like that, just because of the nature of the how things work, right?
Yes. In fact, in one of the calls, actually I think it was in the Visa's call. So now after the presentation, everything gets over, the investors have questions, right? And one of the questions was on the Fed Now, which is going to be announced in the US. They have been saying it for some time, but it is not there yet. So the Fed Now is an equivalent of the UPI that we have here to enable real-time payments. It's still not there yet. But so the question was on how will Mastercard or Visa, change, or what strategies will they adopt once Fed Now comes to the picture? Because, like you said, Chaitanya, it's not a card-based payment, right? And Visa and Mastercard, both of them have been traditionally they have been card-based payment processors. But the answer to that question was basically, I think it was for Mastercard, I'm not sure, but they said, so we are a payments processing company, and we just have to move from processing payments which have occurred via physical card transactions to something that have occurred in the digital space. And this is where, in terms of security of the transaction, in terms of security of the data, in terms of the transaction speed, so this is where they said their value addition will be when it comes to payments which are exclusively digital, not involving any cards. They hope that those payments will leverage their superior technology and enable hassle-free payments for customers.
Right. I think headwinds are around the corner for both the companies, if you ask me. Right? Yeah. It's just a matter of till now, merchants did not have any choice, right? They wanted customers. Customers had debit cards or whatever, credit cards, right? Credit is a big issue. That's a different thing. We'll come to that, right? So merchants stuck with these cards, Either they have to go to either one of these two. They don't have a choice. They didn't have a choice. Okay. So in India, I think it's becoming more apparent that people would, while merchants would accept any card if you would like, if you give it, but you can see it in smaller merchants that some of them don't accept any card at this point in time.
Right.
They accept only one of the whatever
Conventional.
I mean the QR code based UPI payments. Right? That's what they are accepting. So they accept, obviously they'll accept every form of payment. You can be a PhonePe or a Paytm or whatever else, right? But they don't accept debit cards at this point in time. It is different for larger companies. So for example, if you go to a let's say a chain grocery store, etc., right, retail stores, they will accept any payment, right? But I don't think they are showing any preference at this point in time. But the point here is, once the merchant switches, for example, and merchant says, okay, I'll accept only this payment, right? And if the FedNow or UPI payment is adequately available, right, then in that case, basically, then consumers also will start switching.
Right.
That's a possibility. But credit is a different thing, because at this point in time, I think, I just take that back. The scene is changing. If you look at the credit, right, so all the payment that we make are, you have to have money in order to make the payment, right? Yeah. But with credit card, it's not like that, right? With credit card, you don't have to have money, but you can swipe and it will still go through. That's the meaning of a credit card, right? So I think basically with the buy now, pay later kind of a thing that's coming up, right? I think we are seeing in every one of these. In fact, in Paytm, if you look at it, there the buy now, pay later kind of a thing grew by, I think, I could be wrong, it is definitely more than 250%. I think it is probably 583% also. I'm not very sure about it. I saw some number. So the main things I'm saying is that the credit is also growing with these platforms, right? So that is happening at this point in time.
I think so. The fourth point was specific to India. 40% growth in payments volume in this past quarter, and total process transactions. And this is also similar to what we saw in Mastercard, but this is specific only to the holiday spending, that is during the months of November and December. So the Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year. Right? So that grew more than 40% over 2019. So this is also an indication of that pent-up demand that we were talking about. Because see, the December 2021 or the November-December 2021 was like, the interim period between the previous variants of COVID and the Omicron variant, right? Because we saw at that time that cases were a bit on the lower side, but then in January they again started increasing. So and given the mindset of the people during the holiday season, it's only natural that they spent a lot more. So that's what is behind this 40% number that you see over here. And B2b volumes for Visa grew 28%. So we talked about in the previous slide and also in previous sessions that both of these companies are trying to make inroads into this B2b segment. And this is a reflection of the results of their efforts. 28% B2B volume growth. Any questions?
Can I just show one data point here? Is it okay?
Sure, Chaitanya.
Yeah, so I would like you guys. So that.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, apologies. Just 1 second.
Yeah.
I just would like you guys to notice this particular number, which is 40% growth year over year in India. Right? I think we have to see this in context because 40% seems extremely good, and it is good too. But I would like, I just did a very quick comparison. So I'll share my screen at this point.
Just option.
Yeah. So I just did a quick Google search, and this is what I found. So this is UPI. Okay. Basically. Let me just see. This is the National Payments Corporation of India, and these are the volumes. Okay, So I'm looking at, so this is given on a monthly basis, and it's really good that we have the January month data already available, okay, which is fantastic. If you look at this number, I was like comparing, so this number, which is, this is 4,617 millions, okay, that's the volume. And you compare that with the January 21, that is 100% growth in terms of volume. This is what we are seeing. So this number, basically this number divided by this number, okay, that's 100% growth. That's one number. So the other thing I think we can see is this one, right? So in this is in crores, that is 8,31,993 crores, okay? And here, so comparable number is 4,31,000. This is roughly a little less than 100% growth in terms of volumes, okay? But in in terms of value, but in terms of volume also it grew by more than a little more than 100%. Yeah. So I just thought, so in comparison, it's actually growing only at about 40%. Okay, just I'll stop telling us.
Screen visible?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that was on the metrics slide. And moving on. So, what are the industry trends predicted by the C-suite at Visa? Somewhat similar. So, they are also talking about the recovery of travel and the affluent segment spending growth. So, affluent segment is basically people with money to spend. So they will be more. So these people, if you see, over the past couple of years, they have largely not ventured outside. They have not spent anything, and they would have put off their purchases, especially big ticket purchases, right? Buying a car or buying big home appliances like TVs or refrigerators. So those big ticket purchases could have been put off, and so this sort of is in sync with what we saw for Mastercard as well, where they said that there is an expectation that there will be a high amount of pent-up demand in the upcoming year. So here they say that affluent segment may spend more money during the upcoming year. And as cross-border trade picks up with the reduction in restrictions, they foresee that revenue mix will from cross-border will continue to increase. And they are also expecting a revenue growth in the same range, that is the 15 to 19%, the high teens range for 2022. And Visa is also coming up with something called as the Visa Acceptance Cloud, where they say the payment acceptance software will not be embedded in the hardware, but will be cloud-based. So typically, if you see the POS systems that we have today, right? So the software will be part of the device. So that's why anyone wanting to enable payments at their store or at their point of sale with the credit card or debit card will need to make an investment into this hardware piece of it, because the software will be embedded only in that particular POS machine. But what Visa has done is they have come up with this cloud-based solution where you don't need that POS device and everything, but rather the transaction authorization and the transfer of funds and everything will happen over the cloud. So this is also somewhat similar to what we have today with the unified payments interface and everything. But like I said, the Western economies are just getting there, and they are not there yet. Certain other trends. This was what I was talking about initially. The partnerships with banks in emerging economies. So they've expanded acceptance locations in Latin America and India around 30%, and in Mexico they have this partnership with this CI Banco. So they have this Visa B2b Connect technology, which enables cross-border B2B payments. And in Chile, they have this agreement with Santander Bank, and in Brazil with Banco XP. So as a result of this agreement, they have acquired 3 million customers additionally. And they've also extended their existing partnerships with the Pay Bank in Japan and Safaricom in African markets outside of Kenya. Any questions? All right. So certain other partnerships with which Visa has formed, and the first point or the first couple of points, right? So this was what I was saying when I mentioned that Visa is trying to build its capabilities when it comes to cryptocurrencies. So they have partnered with 65 crypto platforms and exchanges. So what are these crypto platforms and exchanges? Even you might have seen certain ads in India also now. So they are up and coming in India as well. So these are basically platforms where you can trade cryptocurrencies. Okay. And what does it mean when we say Visa has partnered with these platforms? So basically, all of those cryptocurrency exchange transactions will be processed or will be enabled by Visa. Okay. And this CBDC, so CBDC is basically central bank digital currency. So for example, last week during the budget, we heard that the digital rupee is going to be launched, right? And so similarly, China has also launched the digital yuan, and there is one more bank in North America which has launched their own digital currency. So the APIs related to these central bank digital currencies are currently being developed, and once this is done, they will enable customers to spend with these digital currencies at any Visa merchant. So this is one thing that Visa has done to sort of not just rely on the physical debit and credit cards for their revenue streams, but rather shifting gears to keep up with the changing market conditions. And the third point, partnership with Affirm to issue Debit Plus cards. So just a while back, Chaitanya was talking about the buy now pay later construct, right? In the context of more customers preferring credit and so on. So this company Affirm is one such company which offers buy now pay later solutions, and they have recently launched something called as the Debit Plus cards. Now this is something similar to buy now pay later. So this is something like so you purchase something using the debit card today. Okay, you pay just a small amount of money, and the rest of the price you can pay it in some 4 or 5 installments without any interest fee. So that is the USP of this Debit Plus card, and these cards have been issued in partnership with Visa. And Visa has acquired this company called Currency Cloud, which processes international B2b transactions, and they have also started to offer these services, the consulting analytics and then the crypto advisory services. Any questions? Right. So that's all I had for today.